thank you for the introduction. Like she said, my name is Jenna, and I am a Dietetic intern at UNL. I'll be graduating in December, so I'm super excited for that and on my way to be a dietitian. Okay, I can share it now. Can everyone see this? Oops. Perfect. So like she said, I'll be talking about sleep and nutrition and how our diet impacts our sleep quality. So first, I'm going to talk about sleep, kind of the factors that influence it, why it's important, and all of that stuff. And then I'll move into nutrition, some of the complexities behind it, and then the sleep promoters and disruptors that nutrition can have an impact in. And then I'll go to some practical tips that you guys can take home and some resources, and then some key takeaways from this presentation. So first, so sleep is a biological process that's broken down into stages, with each stage having an important factor in how much restoration we get. So I'm not going to go through all these stages, but I just want to point out we have like non-REM sleep and then REM sleep. So we have 4 stages, and our body can go through each cycle of the 4 stages 4 to 6 times. So stage 3 is our deepest and most restorative part of sleep, and that's when our body performs tissue growth and repair, and also releases hormones that allows for more energy and just that muscle repair. And then stage 4 is our REM sleep. So we may have heard of this. It's rapid eye movement, and that's when our brain is active to store and organize memories, and also just help you remember and function throughout the day. So these are all important stages that we need to go through. And so with sleep stages, we have what's called circadian rhythm, and that is a 24-hour cycle that's part of our body's internal clock. And circadian means around the day, so it's kind of those 24 hours where our body's in rhythm with our hormones, and also temperature cycling also helps with digestive processes. But one of the most important things is our sleep-wake cycle. So the master clock, which is in our brain, helps our 24-hour rhythm stay in line with waking and sleeping. So during the daytime, light is associated with being awake. So in that, light helps deactivate melatonin and helps activate cortisol, which is an important hormone for wakefulness. And then at night, our melatonin rises, and that helps with sleep, and it triggers our body's cells to kind of go into sleep mode and signal that it's time for rest. So that is very important, and nutrition plays a part in that, and I'll talk about that a little later. And of course, I need to bring in some hormones that are important to regulate our sleep. So some of the hormones, we have helpers and counteractors, and these are all important pieces of the puzzle when it comes to sleep. And I just like this diagram because this is how a normal rhythm, like 24 hours, should like kind of look like with our hormone cycles. So like when you first wake up, if that's 6 a.m., your cortisol secretion begins and you start to feel more awake. And then when you eat, of course, you have insulin release to help absorb your glucose. And then we move through and go back to like cycling at night is when melatonin starts to secrete and you get sleepy. So we have important hormones and neurotransmitters that help with that, which are all parts of food as well, which I'll mention later. So GABA, for example, is a neurotransmitter that decreases cell activity, and it plays an important part of being able to sleep. Adenosine is also an important neurotransmitter that accumulates during the day. And so at high concentrations, it causes us to make us sleepy at night. And an important thing with this is caffeine actually blocks this neurotransmitter to help you stay awake. So when you drink caffeine, that's kind of the mechanism of why you feel awake. And then melatonin is a hormone that is released by the brain when it's dark, and it's actually deactivated during the light. So it needs to be dark to have this activated. And this helps us fall asleep, again, signals our bodies to fall asleep. And then serotonin is important, as you may know this as like the feel-good hormone, but that also is a mechanism that turns into melatonin. So I'll show that diagram a little later, but that's an important factor into producing melatonin. And of course, we have these counteractors, so norepinephrine, adrenaline, histamine, and cortisol, which you may recognize this as the stress hormone, but that all keeps us awake during the day. So a question often asked is, how much sleep do we actually need? And the Sleep Foundation put out a couple studies, but average healthy adults need between 7 to 9 hours of sleep and no less than 5 hours of sleep. So if we do get more or more than 9 hours or less than 5 hours, that can cause it causes inadequate sleep, where you're in the inadequate sleep category. So it can lead to yourself being at risk for like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity. It can cause irritability, frustration, moodiness. Some aggressive behaviors might occur. You could have some mental health disorders, decreased capacity for memory, attention, learning, reasoning, all this not so fun stuff. And so I also like to point out that inadequate sleep not only means like too few hours, but also can mean more than 9 hours or more than 10, I guess in this case. And it also can mean like variability throughout the nights. So let's say, for instance, like Wednesday night, you sleep like 12 hours, and then Thursday night you get maybe 7 hours of sleep, and then Friday you get like 10. Those are very variable throughout the night, so that also is under the inadequate sleep category. And so what factors influence our sleep? Well, there are so many. I couldn't even fit all of them on the slide because there are so many studies out there that just show that everything can contribute to your sleep, which is also important. So of course we have like any stress with any career, academic, social life, that is a major one. Sleep disorders, if you have like sleep apnea or like restless leg syndrome, that can cause you to wake up at night and also not get the adequate amount of sleep you need. Genetics, of course, plays a role in it. Drugs and alcohol, which I'll touch on later. Electronics is a big one now because of the blue light. So like a little description on blue light in general is that it's needed to be awake. So the sunlight has blue light, and that causes our cortisol levels to rise, which is our wakefulness. But when we're on like electronics or like computers at night, our body isn't told to like go to sleep or produce melatonin. So we want to like stay awake. So electronics have that blue light that can cause us to stay awake at night. Of course, like sleep environment's important, your physical, mental health, and then nutrition is a key part of that. So I'll kind of move into talking about nutrition, but the main thing is that it's very complex. And of course, diet can impact sleep, and also sleep can impact our diet. So it's kind of a two-way road, but it also more things than just diet can impact our sleep. So it's important to keep those in mind when I go through this. So I also like to bring this up. This was in a study posted a couple years ago. The picture is kind of blurry itself, so sorry, but this just shows the kind of complexity that sleep can impact diet. Diet can impact your hormones. Hormones can impact sleep. Sleep can impact hormones. And then all of this can impact your disease outcomes and like health outcomes in general. So I'm not going to go into any of these, but I just like this as an overall depiction of how diet plays a role in sleep, and also how sleep can play a role in diet. And then, of course, your biology. So how does sleep exactly impact nutrition? I'm going to kind of break this down a little further, but first I'm going to begin with sleep deprivation and how that can actually impact how we eat. So studies have found that sleep deprivation actually is associated with higher levels of ghrelin. And ghrelin is that hunger hormone, so it increases and then we feel hungry and we want to eat. So when you're sleep deprived, they think that you have higher levels of ghrelin, which could cause you to overeat. Also, they found that some studies you have more of a hunger towards carbohydrates, which makes sense because carbohydrates give you that quick fuel and quick energy. And so if your body is fatigued, then your body wants that quick energy. And carbohydrates aren't bad. It's just if you're consuming only carbohydrates, then you're missing important components of your holistic diet like fats and protein. And then if you're sleep deprived, you're going to be spending more time awake. So there's been studies that link more time awake to maybe overeating, which night snacking again isn't bad. It's just those snacks that you reach for at night and like some of the reasons why you're overeating or why you might be eating. And then it can also disrupt your reasoning. So when we're not getting into like that stage 4, when your brain is like organizing memories and trying to restore your body, then you can get thrown off. So like inconsistent sleep schedules may cause you to like eat more. If you're too tired, then you might not want to even like make a meal. So you go eat out some fast food. You could skip meals and maybe just consume just like those quick, maybe unhealthy snacks that you normally wouldn't eat. So then I'm going to kind of do like the reverse and how nutrition exactly can impact sleep. And there's a lot of components to this. I'm going to kind of like go over each one briefly, but I just kind of have this slide to show you how much like research is out and like what exactly they're looking at. But again, it's important to remember that things like depression and stress definitely confound relationships between food and sleep. So it's also important to like not only look at diet, but look at other components like stress and other management with your life and how it impacts sleep. So first, I'm going to kind of dive into macronutrients and the importance of each one of these on sleep. And then picking out some of the micronutrients in our diet, like vitamins, minerals, all of that, and what they've kind of looked at with research and how it impacts sleep. And then specifically some different whole foods that have been targeted to like promote sleep and kind of what the research says for those. So first, the macronutrients. So those are our carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And I know Madison probably touched on how these are all important for our immune health. It's the same for our sleep health. So overall, just that like well-balanced diet is associated with like better sleep quality in general. So we've seen like My Plate. This is a plate put out by Harvard nutrition source. So it's just like showing you overall like filling half your plate with fruits and veggies, getting those whole grains and healthy proteins in will definitely make a difference. Some research shows that those who eat like low fiber, high saturated fats, and high sugar intakes have been associated with like lighter, less restorative sleep. So we're not getting into those like complete stages of our sleep cycle. We're maybe hitting like 2 and then waking up, or 3. So you're not kind of getting that full restorative sleep. And then of course, research has also indicated that protein and carbohydrate deficiencies have been associated with shorter sleep duration. So not only like the type of food you're eating, but if you're not eating enough, then your body's not going to have energy to even restore and build muscle that it does like at night. So then you'll have shorter sleep duration too. So I like pointing this out first before I dive into like any vitamins and minerals, just because I think this is kind of fun to know, like how protein, actually what you consume is broken down and how it transfers to melatonin. So first, like dietary protein, if you take like eggs or chicken or turkey or any like protein, it breaks down and turns into tryptophan. So that requires, of course, stomach acid. And tryptophan is an amino acid from protein. And that then gets converted to 5-HT. You don't need to know what that is. And then it converts to serotonin, and then serotonin converts to melatonin. And I also like to point out that in order for tryptophan to turn to this molecule, you need folate, magnesium, and vitamin B6. So if you're deficient in any of these two, it makes it that much harder to convert into all of these things to eventually turn into melatonin. That of course helps you sleep at night and is required for that sleep cycle and circadian rhythm that I talked about like at the beginning. And also I like to point out that in order for serotonin to turn into melatonin, you need darkness. So that's important with like our electronics or like any other lights in the room. You won't do like full conversion of serotonin to melatonin, which also will impact your sleep. So I just like pointing this out before I talk about any of these nutrients. So tryptophan itself has been researched a lot for sleep and sleep quality. And we kind of saw at the last slide how tryptophan kind of follows that path to melatonin. So it is super important. Most Americans get enough of this because tryptophan is found in our meats and protein-rich foods. So like milk, chicken, turkey, cheese, eggs, nuts, legumes, and then oats. Tuna is high in tryptophan. So these are all really good to incorporate in your diet to just help produce like melatonin, of course. And then some other sleep-friendly foods that have quite a bit of research on them, I've just like pulled together. And of course, like none of these are all healthy foods to include in your diet, but none of them are like the end all be all ingredient. I think a lot of people look for that. But these are just all good sources of tryptophan and other vitamins and minerals to help like regulate your sleep cycle. So like tart cherry juice, for example, is popular now. It's also used by athletes because it reduces muscle soreness, boosts the immune system, and can help you fight inflammation, but it also contains quite a bit of tryptophan. So of course that helps produce melatonin. And then oily fish, that's a good source of vitamin D, which a lot of Americans are deficient in. And of course it has like healthy omega-3, so it helps regulate your serotonin production. And then kiwi has been researched a little bit. It has a lot of antioxidants that help your immune health, and then also just like high serotonin levels. Fermented milk and like milk in general has a lot of tryptophan. Fermentation helps increase the amount of GABA, which is that neurotransmitter that aids in sleep. And then these three, like nuts, bananas, and oatmeal, they all have some tryptophan in them because of the protein, but also they contain essential vitamins like B6 and then zinc that are again helped, like we saw in the cycle earlier, helps convert your protein into melatonin. So of course, like we looked at sleep promoting foods. Now we're gonna switch gears and kind of look at nutrition that disrupts our sleep. So of course, vitamin deficiencies. I just pulled kind of the three big ones that are most Americans might be deficient in, but there are so many vitamins and minerals that we could go over. I just picked these three. So vitamin D, of course, the dietary guidelines want you to consume like 600 international units per day. And so a reference guide to like what that is usually if you drink like 2 to 3 8-ounce glasses of milk, and then get 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight exposure and consume some sort of like fortified like cereal or drink, it should get you to 600 international units. A lot of people are deficient in this just because sunlight is a big component of this. Most of our vitamin D comes from the sun. So in the winter, when we're not getting outside as much, then we do not get this much exposure. Also, sunscreen or like glass between you. So if you're like driving, that doesn't count either because that blocks some of the blue light that's needed. And then, of course, vitamin D and calcium kind of go hand in hand because you need vitamin D to absorb calcium. So a kind of reference to that is just like getting 3 servings of dairy per day. Calcium's rich in some leafy greens. And then also there's calcium fortified products. And then magnesium is kind of a hot topic right now too with sleep. So the dietary guidelines is 320 to 420 milligrams. And then they say like, I put the upper limit. This is the upper supplement limit. They don't really have like an actual upper limit, but they don't want you to take you more than 350 milligrams. Normally, most Americans can get enough magnesium in your diet. Like if you're consuming 5 handfuls of fruits and vegetables per day, getting at least 3 servings of whole grains and including like 1/4 cup of nuts, especially pumpkin seeds have a lot of magnesium in them. So that's good to include. And then like a serving of legumes, you should be able to get this much magnesium in the day. And then alcohol is a big one. So I like pointing out this chart. This was from the Sleep Foundation, and they said through research that high amounts of alcohol decrease your sleep quality by 32 or 39.2%, which when you look at high amounts, what that actually is they studied just more than 2 drinks for men and more than 1 drink for women. And if you think about that in like our culture today, like that's pretty average or like less for some, but it can disrupt your sleep quality by a lot. And so overall, it just causes suppression of REM sleep because your body is trying to process the alcohol. And so your body won't be able to get into REM sleep with it in your system. So the recommendation that they put out is to stop drinking alcohol at least 4 hours before bed so your body has enough time to process it. And then another big one is caffeine, which we all love and use to get through the day. But again, it blocks that sleep promoting chemical called adenosine. And so research has shown that caffeine consumed at least 6 hours before bed could reduce your sleep by 1 hour, which when I read that, it's quite a bit. But so the tip for that is they said to consume caffeine at least early in the day and try to stop by 3. So again, your body has enough time to process it. The FDA recommends limiting caffeine consumption to 400 milligrams. And so this kind of chart shows you how much caffeine is in like your standard cup of coffee, energy drink, soda, all of that. And some other common sources are like chocolate. Medications could have caffeine, like if you take a migraine medication, some of them have caffeine in them. And then of course, like ones that we don't really think about, but like ice cream, if it has chocolate or coffee, it could have some caffeine in it. And so overall, some just general tips that help with sleep is, of course, talk with your doctor to try to identify any potential sleep disorders that you may have. You might not even know you have it, like sleep apnea. Again, genetics kind of plays a big role. Digestive issues, anxiety, stress, and other drug interactions could cause a barrier to your sleep. And then, of course, technology with that blue light that I kind of mentioned earlier. Nutrition plays a big role, and of course, stress management is probably key to getting a good night's rest. And then sleep hygiene. The Sleep Foundation actually has a good document and article and like plan to like help you kind of come up with a nightly routine. But they say to improve like your bedroom environment, so keep it dark. Because again, you need darkness to actually activate melatonin, so that's important. Cool temperature, since your body, your temperature lowers at night, so it's helpful to like kind of stay with the temperature of your body. Silence, and then like a calming scent like lavender or something like that. Having a fixed wake up time is super important. Also having a fixed like sleep time, so you're not having those inconsistent sleep schedules. Of course, prioritizing sleep, because if you don't prioritize it, probably is not happening. And then gradually adjusting your sleep schedule. So if you're sleeping at 1 a.m. and want to sleep like by 9 p.m., you can't just go from 1 a.m. to 9 p.m. They say to like lower or decrease the time you go to bed by like 10 to 15 minutes each night. So it's like easier on your body to adapt. Keep napping to a minimum. So try not to nap like after like 2 or 3 p.m. So you're not disrupting any sleep cycle. And then exercising, try to exercise 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. There was a study by Harvard that was put out that if like people who exercised like 30 minutes before they went to bed delayed the onset of time they went to bed. Exercise is also super helpful to sleep, but just keeping that like a little like 1 to 2 hours before you try to go to bed. And then of course, following a nightly routine. So like taking 30 minutes to like read a book, meditate, journal or something. Try to like not use that time to be on your phone or any other electronics. Another question are like supplements that people ask like when they want to go to bed, or like sleep aids, like those are okay. And questions that I like to ask before like recommending or like taking a supplement is if we've tried like a sleep hygiene plan, or if you're following one, if it's helped, if you're deficient in any vitamins, like have you had those tested? Are you consuming foods like rich in any of these nutrients that you might be deficient in? And then of course, like asking your doctor, because you don't want to have like a medication supplement reaction, because medications can interact with the supplements that you're trying to take. And then the questions to ask like about a supplement is who's selling it? Is the company reputable? Is it third party tested? And then do they have like brands like NSF, USP, and like Consumer Lab that have more testing and inspection? And so key takeaways, I'll kind of briefly go through these, but of course, sleep is affected by so many things, like nutrition is just one piece of the puzzle. Sleep affects your nutrition and nutrition affects sleep. So it's kind of that two-way street, which one affects which. And it's important to prioritize sleep, of course. And then overall, just like that healthy, balanced diet is the best approach to encourage better sleep. And so here's some resources I found that were super helpful when I was like putting together this presentation. So the National Sleep Foundation has like a good plan that I kind of talked about, how to like get better sleep. American Academy of Sleep Medicine has some good articles and information. Of course, the dietary guidelines can let you know like what foods contain what vitamins, minerals, nutrients. And then Consumer Lab is like a good website to look at if you're looking for like supplements that are third party tested and reviewed and all of that. But with that, I thank you guys for listening. And if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat. And if we don't get to them, of course, like email, that's my UNL email. And of course, Peyton is here to answer any questions that you guys have about nutrition too. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask them or just put them in the chat and we can get those answered for you. One thing I would like to bring up that Jenna touched on is the supplements for sleep and just bringing up melatonin, because that's one that a lot of people want to take. But one thing I would just caution you with is if you're taking that for a long time, your body can kind of forget how to make it itself, or it stops producing melatonin itself, which obviously Jenna had shown you a really good process of how that happens just with eating certain foods. So her advice to really look at what you're eating before trying to take these supplements is going to be the best route, just because then it's all natural and you're making that your body knows what it's doing, and we're not kind of throwing off its natural processes. So great advice there, Jenna.
Yeah, thank you for adding that, Peyton. I was going to touch more into those, but I didn't want it to be all about sleep aids and supplements.
Yes.
So you're more towards food, but yes.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Jenna? And if you don't have them answered here, or, you know, you think of something later, like Jenna said, feel free to send us an email and we'd love to answer those for you guys. Righty, I'm not seeing anything come through, so we should be good to go. And then we will put this up on YouTube. So if you guys ever want to go back and rewatch it, you can go to our YouTube page, which I'll send an email out and kind of go to whichever area you want. And then Jenna will also be providing a little recap. So I'll send that to you guys as well. But perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining. Have a good rest of your day.